which presumably help to structure, or entirely structure presumably, my thinking processes. So to the extent that that happens, part of my thinking processes must be structured by the fact that I'm constantly looking at this big circular porthole. So that's, in a sense, a really important circle for me. In George Spencer Brown's terms, the primary distinction that my eyes are making in this constant visual narrative that I'm walking around with is a distinction between the stuff which is inside of my field of vision and the stuff which is outside, and things are constantly passing in and out of that zone or across that boundary, with all of the different properties that the inside and the outside has in visual terms. And that's more complex than I'm indicating there, but perhaps I'll find time to talk about that later. The second visual circle that I think is significant, that I find significant, is it's a phenomenological experience, which is this circle that I'm standing in the middle of the whole time. On a personal, perceptual level, I guess all of us stand on the middle of a great big disc, with the horizon, or at least the extent of our vision, terminating at the perimeter of a great big circle. I'm surrounded by woodland at the moment, so that circle is quite an odd one. It's a bit jagged, and it has a crenellated top where the tops of the trees are. But if I was to, actually I'm not trying this at some point, if I was to take a photograph that, I could probably render it as a kind of circle, a kind of camera obscura projection. And again, I find that important because I'm assuming, rightly or wrongly, that ongoing experience of not only looking out into a circle, but standing at the centre of a circle, is constantly feeding into my understanding of the world, and has always fed into my understanding of the world throughout the history of my species and my instantiation of the species, and presumably what cognition and consciousness I'm capable of having is partly tailored by the demands and the inevitabilities of this phenomenal disk, as well as the phenomenal visual circular field. Those are a couple of circles which I'm finding important. Related to that, I think, I'm not sure if this is primary or secondary, is what I've already spoken about in terms of circles, and also spheres, but circles in this case, representing everythingness, or allness. So I think I've said before that even when we're playing charades and we want to indicate that we're miming the whole thing, we do this gesture with our hands to indicate a circle in space in front of us, which, like the curly brackets at the end of a sentence, holds the whole thing together and makes the whole thing into a holistic, singular package. And again, that relates back to what I've already said about Parmenides and Xenophanes and those people who conceive of a particular understanding of God as being synonymous with everything, and that God being a perfect circle or a perfect sphere. So allness, it has that sort of understanding. And here I think it falls back into George Spencer Brown, for me at least. Because when George Spencer Brown draws a circle on a page, or when we all do that, there's a sense in which we're simultaneously indicating a variety of things to do with number, and to do with infinity, and to do with infinitesimals, and to do with nothingness, I think, also. There's an assumption, I think there's a tacit assumption at least, that when they draw the circle on the page to indicate what Spencer Brown calls the primary distinction, the making of the first mark, what also happens at that point is you create the void out of which the mark appears. Effectively you don't see the page doesn't exist. The surface on which the mark appears doesn't effectively exist until the mark is made, and then it becomes a salient feature of the landscape, so to speak. So the making of the mark simultaneously creates the void out of which somethingness appears. The circle of the primary distinction in Spencer Brown is representative of singularity, it's representative of oneness. It distinguishes the nothingness which precedes the making mark from the singularity of oneness that is created by the making of that mark. So oneness is represented there, but also there's a sense in which infinity is represented. The circle which exists is representative not of one thing amongst many things, but one thing that is capable of being subdivided into everything. So it has that kind of uncarved block sense which exists after the primary distinction. Okay, so those are a few things I'm thinking about in terms of circles, a few of the relevances that a circle has for me, and which I can't honestly say I consciously think about every single time I see a circle, but those are the kind of ideas which I'm mobilizing, I think, when the circle starts to feature within a kind of epistemology.